A few days ago, the CEO of Ultraview slid into my DMs and said, "What's your address, homie?" And I thought that was just a little bit creepy. But just a few hours later, I checked my email and Ultraview sent out this teaser for a new Hinge release. So of course, I sent over my address and spent the next few days wondering if I was getting a brand new release or if this guy was gonna rob me. Now thankfully, the first thing was true, and this arrived this morning. Now Ultraview doesn't sponsor me. All I got from them was a DM and a brand new release. So today we're not reading off their spec sheet, we're gonna take this thing apart, see how it works, shoot it, and probably do at least one thing Ultraview's marketing team would prefer I didn't. Now the very first thing I notice, other than it looking super cool, is that the release itself is slightly bigger than the picture on the front of the box. Absolutely unshootable. How can I be expected to enjoy a release with such blatant false advertising right on the front of the package? But I think I can survive that massive disappointment, and I actually have to admit, this package they have is actually pretty cool. And I really do like the tamper-proof seal they put on the bottom. But I don't like the fact that you have to pull the foam insert out of the bottom of the package. Immediately after you pull it out, you're stuck juggling two pieces of garbage instead of just admiring the release. Plus, this foam insert is layered with multiple types of foam, and it is really hard to get that to look good from the sides. So immediately, the presentation value goes down when you're stuck holding this messy foam block. What I think they should have done is make the front of the box lift up so the release inside looks exactly like the picture on the front of the box. But I get it, that would be a little more difficult to design, it'd probably be a little more expensive, especially if what they're using now is a pre-cut box. But moving on to the release itself. As far as the in-hand feel goes, if you're used to the Hinge 2, this is going to feel incredibly familiar. Best I can tell, the handle is exactly the same width and size as the Hinge 2 release. They did add these grooves on the inside of the finger holes, and honestly, I don't think they help me much, but they definitely don't make the release worse. But the big difference in geometry is the neck length. While the shape of the release is essentially the same, they moved the hook closer to your hand. That shorter neck is a change a lot of people really wanted to see, and it definitely changes how the release feels. Mechanically though, this is a pretty massive departure from the Hinge 2. Straight out of the box, you only get to adjust one thing about this release: the fire distance. Whereas the Hinge 2 had independently adjustable click and fire mechanisms. On Hinge 3, if you want to change the click distance, you have to partially disassemble the release and replace the hook with a completely new one. Also straight out of the box, it comes as a 3-finger. If you want a 2 or 4-finger, you have to buy those brackets separately from Ultraview. It also comes with this thumb pad, which honestly is super cool. Nobody else offers that, but I prefer to shoot a hinge peg. So if I want to do that, I have to buy that adapter from Ultraview as well. Now the aluminum version I have here runs $250. The brass version is $300. So the reality is, if you're someone who likes to tinker with your release, to unlock the full adjustability this platform can offer, you have to be prepared to spend an extra $180 on the accessories. But on the other hand, if you're someone who has never shot a Hinge before, that's exactly what makes this release incredibly approachable. By taking away your ability to constantly mess with how this release feels and shoots, it keeps you from overcomplicating things. It forces you to just set the fire distance and focus on your shot execution. So for now, I think I'm just going to use it exactly as it comes out of the box. That's really weird. Hold on. So it breaks clean, but there's a noticeable grinding happening inside here. So the internals of both these releases are steel, but the Hinge 2 has polished, while the Hinge 3 has this black coating on it. But this black coating does make the release look super cool, don't get me wrong, but you can hear it grinding as you rotate through the shot. I assume this is just because of the finish they put on the hook and the moon. I assume with time it'll wear down and it'll get smoother, but right out of the box you can definitely notice, you can hear and feel it kind of grinding. One other thing I just noticed, there's no way they did this on purpose, but on the Hinge 1 there's no magnet, so it just rattles. On Hinge 2 there is a magnet, but if you don't get the hook set right, it can rattle too. On this one, even if you don't set the hook, it catches every time. That's crazy. There's no way they did that on purpose, but that is super cool. And since we're already talking about the internals and comparing it to the older model, let's just go ahead and take both of them apart. Now seeing these both side by side, I have to say this new fire mechanism is actually super cool. and it seems to directly address a problem that the Hinge 2 had, that the moons would sometimes move on people over time. Part of that could have been this set screw mechanism on the Hinge 2, which could have put some uneven pressure on the two moons. I never actually had my moons move on the Hinge 2, but my main complaint with this one is that the click was far too prominent. That prominent click could have also been part of the problem with the Hinge 2. When you reach that click, the Hinge 2 sometimes jumps in your hand, and over hundreds of shots, that could loosen some things up. By moving the click to a fixed hook and completely rethinking the internal moon, I think it's safe to say they've solved that problem. The adjustment mechanism on the Hinge 3 is objectively a more polished design. My only complaint about the internals for this release is that the set screw right here can be completely removed by accident. It's a fairly short screw and it comes out super easily. I could totally see someone just trying to adjust their moon and accidentally losing the set screw in the grass somewhere. With the Hinge 2, you really can't take this apart unless you're actively trying to. However, I must say trying to put this back together is genuinely infuriating. So this is a much more refined, polished, and probably consistent design. The only trade-off is that you don't get that infinitely adjustable click. But enough talking about it, it's time to get this to the range and send some arrows. Ugh. Awful. Ah. Bad shooting aside, I think I've proven that the Hinge 3 can survive anything you throw at it. And after spending some time with this release, I can confidently say it is my favorite Hinge release. However, I feel the need to mention that I've only ever shot Ultraview Hinge releases. I also feel the need to point out that after sending about 100 arrows downrange, that crunchy grinding feeling is still there. Also, after inspecting the hook, there is some signs of wear, and it doesn't look like the hook is making full contact with the moon. None of this affects the way it shoots, but for $250, it's definitely something you should be aware of. And I don't care what anybody says, the idea that switching to a Hinge release will somehow cure your target panic is utter horseradish. To fix that, you're just gonna have to live with it and put in the work. But if you are looking for a Hinge, this is one of the most comfortable to use and easy to adjust on the market. Just remember though, you do not need to spend Ultraview money to get a good Hinge release. But if you do, you probably won't be disappointed.